agenda to control exactly what people think, and this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
And we are going free on a bit of a special going free. Just, I don't know how long we're going to be here. Every time I say it, this is not going to be very long, we end up staying much, much longer. But it's not going to be a typical 8-hour Sunday. I'm still getting the screens up and running here. And I was just rushing after, I guess I can try touching this. Yes, the electricity is still coursing through me for some reason. But we will have this screen and that screen moved over here in just a moment. And if you do let me do this for one moment, we will have the one other step properly in place. Let me see, make sure I'm grounding myself. I think we also have a couple pieces of news that are occurring that some of you might want to speak to and or have us bring up, and we didn't get to do that during PWR. If you could please share the URL here quickly, because again, we're not going to be here as long as we normally are. So I would like to get as many people in here to hear the info we have to share while we have to share it. And so it's great to see you all, the advanced placement class, that you are all here with me. How many of you all, as I pull open this machine, oh, you know what I should do is entropy. So that you can, remember, you can financially gift on Entropy. You can also do so on Cash App. Cash App is working, even though it is operating in a peculiar way. We have this interesting article that I want to talk about, and this from the BBC News. Neo-Nazi militia group grooms teenagers, and this is from the 22nd, 2 days ago, by a writer by the name of Daniel, a typist by the name of Daniel and Ali. And so I haven't read any of this yet, but I did take a look at the photographs here, and it's a very interesting article. And I'm going to drop the URL in for the pictures alone. If you don't look at anything else, I'm going to drop the URL in the live chat in a moment, so that you all can take a look at the photographs if you haven't seen it yet. Again, this is, you can look it up for yourselves. BBC News, neo-Nazi militia group grooms teenagers. It was published 2 days ago. And you look at the first picture of the of the individual who is grooming, who is organizing, orchestrating. And this is somebody right out of the military. This is somebody who is clearly working for a government. I don't know what government. Of course, what I just said there is false, and you'll have to look it up for yourself. You all can take a look at the photograph of this individual and see if you think that this looks like some private from some branch of the military who was told, hey, we will pay you a bunch of extra dollars to do X, Y, or Z for us. And you scroll down on the thread and you see the kinds of white people who have been roped into this. And they're not exactly, I'm sure down deep they're wonderful people, but they're not exactly our finest specimens. These folks, I don't know them, but by the looks on their faces, I would not, well, of course you can't say for sure one way or the other how bright or dim-witted someone is just by the look on their face. But you can decide for yourself whether or not these would be the kind of people that, I don't know, you might find at a physics conference. And these folks are maybe more on the other side of the spectrum of the folks you would find at a physics conference. Nothing wrong with that. But what it does mean is that these are the kind of individuals who are easily roped into this sort of subversive activity, potentially. You'll have to determine for yourself. And then the anti-white regime is able to write these news stories about neo-Nazi, this anti-white slur, these neo-Nazi militia groups that are planning terrorist activities, and they tar all of us, they conflate all of us, including those, as best they can, including those like us who serve nothing but white well-being from a place of love and redemption. Not only do we reject violence, but we overtly claim that any violence that is associated with any of our ideas or movements, etc., can only be detrimental. Nothing good can come of it. Not any good whatsoever. So anyone who commits any act of violence or lawlessness does so to the detriment of the totality of service to white well-being. And we want you all to see, all of you, I guess, potential prosecuting attorneys in the Department of Justice and elsewhere around the world, that not only do we reject violence, but we aver, look it up if you don't know what the word means, we absolutely aver that it will harm the work that violence will harm the work that we are doing for white well-being. So take a look at those photographs and you'll see that if there was anything in history that looked like it was set up by anti-whites with money, whether it be anti-whites in government or in the United States government, or anti-whites in other governments, maybe anti-whites in non-white governments, it would set something up like this, or anti-whites that are employed by big anti-white organizations out there that receive both taxpayer dollars and multi-million-dollar contributions from many different investors over the course of the year. This is it. This base garbage is it. This is exactly what it looks like. You have here somebody that looks like he just took off his private uniform and stepped into the role for whoever, and then has roped in these folks who would be living probably very happy lives, whatever they would have done otherwise, and instead they've listened to the garbage of this idiot and probably others who are in the employ, and now they've been arrested. They're going to go to jail. We'll read the article. But this is the exact kind of thing we talk about. This is why we absolutely reject in every way, shape, and form anything that looks like the bad guy in the anti-white narrative. And we'll be talking about that in connection with this admonition in the title here of not browbeating. And it's not just content producers, but and this is something we've talked about occasionally, not browbeating content producers, but really anybody in your life, because you don't, if somebody, we'll get to it in a more, I guess, a fuller way briefly, but if somebody is in your life and you have made a suggestion about doing something better than the way they do it, and they say that no, they want to keep doing it their way, then that's it. You move on. And you've given it your best, and you can, if it's a content producer, you can talk to the people that they are talking to, and you can make the same suggestions to them about using the lexicon and dialectics that actually work, that have proof of concept, instead of the lexicon and dialectics that have proof of failure. And if any of those individuals say, nah, want to stick with the ones that fail, then you just say, okay, have a nice day, move on to somebody. And I think, and I'm going to be increasingly now of the minds, I am increasingly of the mindset that our best odds are going to be with regular white folks who are not inside the white positive sphere. Too many, there are going to be a percentage who are already in the white positive sphere, and because we have many of them here today and many of them going free, there's going to be plenty of a percentage. But essentially, you go to that community and you are pulling out the advanced placement people, the people who are able to adopt a winning strategy. And then you're going to run into, increasingly, as you glean the best out of that community, you're going to increasingly run into imbeciles, and they want to stick with the losing ways. And there's no reason to continue a debate with them, just ad infinitum, about why the methods that they are using do not work. I've seen many of you, and I want to laud you on Twitter and Gab and elsewhere who have engaged folks, and that's exactly what we should be doing. Engaged folks in the white positive sphere about the dialectics and lexicon they're using, and many of you are having absolutely commendable success, sterling success, and I salute you all for that. But like, for example, I came across an individual. He did the right thing in this conversation. I think it was on Twitter, where it started the conversation with somebody, and this individual was clearly said, "Oh, not going to use some other lexicon. Everybody knows what needs to be done." And he said he knows exactly what needs to be done. You probably should run away from somebody like that. You should probably block somebody who says something like that. Now, this person who was trying to persuade this individual did stop attempting to persuade that individual, and you should, because that's somebody who's useless, potentially dangerous. If they know exactly what needs to be done, but they're not doing it, that means that it's almost assuredly something violent, or they're too damn stupid to actually implement any sort of strategy. They don't actually have a strategy, and they're just fed up, and they would rather lose. And I think the reality is that a lot of people in the white positive sphere, let me rephrase that. There's some in the white positive sphere who would just rather lose because it's comfortable. So let me fire up this machine over here. And we will continue rolling and having a hell of a good time. And I will see how you all are doing. We're not going to be, just so you all know, we're not going to be taking calls during this particular show. But we will again on Sunday. Don't plan to be here too long. I've got a lot to do. I'm very busy. But I had, after PWR, I had and even toward the end of PWR, I had a great many people who were writing me and saying, oh, please do a going free. Please speak to some of the things that are being said and some of the news stories that weren't addressed. So I am responding to that. And let's see, Coconut is here. Hello to you, dear lady. Wonderful to have you. Bartleby, great to see you. Johnny Reb, Nordic Nightmare, Beer Hall Putsch, and Yiz is here. Great to see you, dear lady. And the magnificent Kevin, congratulations on 20,000 subs. Thank you. And we already moved up past the 100 mark into 20,000 just in the blink of an eye. Evidence violates community guidelines. Great to see you. Southern Bloom, Anglo-Saxon, Jennings, Andre Boston, Zoe, great to see you. Pesky, and Sean is here. Takar is here. And was it Silence Learner Remembered? Great to see so many here in the advanced placement. The great Elaine Sabatino, Ezekiel. And again, if you all could share this URL quickly, and we will get underway. Rufus is here. Shauna is here. Juicy is here. John, great to see you. And Red Eagle is here. Elaine says she's doing her chores, and we're fine with that. Donning Armor, congrats on the 20,000. I'm so happy for you, brother. Well, thank you so very much. And we are continuing to grow despite the odds. Iron Will asking about PWR only on D Live. Yes, that's where it was today. And it will be over on BitChute tomorrow, on Mark's BitChute. And we'll see where he decides to stream the show in the future. He might stream on YouTube again. But of course, the concern now is that Traversing the Divide is here. Great to see you. Good brother. The concern is that you can't speak openly, or you can't speak negatively about certain anti-white groups. And what do I say here? That we don't call them by the names of their taking. One of the reasons why we don't call anti-whites by the names of their taking, and I guess this is a good place to start. So if you have questions, if you have questions about PWR, let's hear them. Those who financially gift will get preferential treatment. They'll go to the head of the line. So that can be done on Entropy, and that can be done on Cash App. I'll check both. But everybody who asks a question, all questions will be answered, even if I have to reword them to protect the channel from YouTube and the censorship. So anything from the show that we talked about, we had James Fox Higgins on, and I will be on his show tomorrow night, which is going to be a splendid time. So please do join us there over on his channel. And Althea is here. Great to see you. I see Red Pill Bulgaria is here. And I have a question actually for Red Pill Bulgaria, because I saw somebody in the live chat during the show that said, and they had a name that was very similar to yours. So it might not be the same person, but they had a name that was very similar to yours. And they spoke very negatively about the lexicon and dialectics that we use here in Going Free. So was that you? And if that's your account, tag me and let me know, and let me know what the problem is with using a lexicon and dialectics that have a proof of success versus a lexicon and dialectics that have proof of failure. By the way, over your entire life, over the span of your entire life, using anti-white verbiage has failed you. This idea that people, they can't adopt the lexicon and dialectics that work is total horseshit. And I'm sick and tired of people saying that it's because, well, it's something new. We can't possibly learn it. The general public learns like that when the anti-whites give them a new word. When the anti-whites give them a new phrase that's going to harm them, it's like this. They immediately adopt it, and they say, what do you want me to call them? What do you want me to call myself? I mean, how many people out there call themselves politically incorrect? This is drunken stupidity with your skull caved in. I mean, this is how dumbass this is. Now, having said that, and this is a problem. One of the reasons, and I'm so tired of this myopia, this low IQ, or maybe it's not. Maybe it's even high IQ, but still not high enough. But this, like, oh, I don't want to use this lexicon that works because, and then give some absolutely superficial dumbass reason, as though that's the argument that's made in favor of the lexicon, and not being able to compute, not being able to see all of the different reasons. I mean, these people are just, Shakespeare said, it's better to keep your mouth shut and have people wonder whether or not you're a dumbass than to open your mouth and prove that you're a dumbass. So these people, I mean, like, for example, when it comes to the Black Lives Matter, which is a wonderful organization, many wonderful people in this organization, and they're doing what they're doing for, you just ask CNN, all wonderful people, and you just, they're doing what they're doing for their community. And they have chosen a path that's different from the path that we use in Going Free and serving white well-being. More power to them, so be it. But by calling them by their name and then ascribing criticism to them, ascribing criminality to their motivations, etc., people are having their entire channels deleted. People are receiving strikes. So is it smart to call them? I mean, that's not the only reason why you don't call. That's not even anywhere close to the first reason. But there are many reasons why you do not call these anti-whites by the names of their taking. Now, if you have a specific situation, as we did when Sarah Dye was on, she was talking about specifically being in a group of anti-whites that called themselves feminists. She said, and she did it the right way, she said anti-whites who call themselves feminists. Then we knew specifically who she was talking about, and then she referred to them from there on out as anti-whites. So it is a decision that people are going to make. If you say to them, and this is with content producers, this is with friends and family, so I'm reiterating this point today because of earlier today. If you have, and everybody out there, and let me first of all say, everybody who is spreading, and there are some absolute magnificent champions who are spreading Go Free to their friends and family and strangers, and they're suggesting it to content producers, and the content producers are adopting it. We have an entire, it's like 4th of July in the United States, Independence Day, the finale at the end of the fireworks display, and you see all of these just missiles of sparkle and color and everything shooting into the nighttime sky. That is what our content producers look like right now, who are going free, who are doing, embracing something that works for our people, has demonstrated success for our people, undermines anti-whites, doesn't, I mean, what did Tim Murdoch said the other day, something that was absolutely brilliant. And so I want to give credit to him. He said, I'll say victimizer. I think he said enemy. So I'll say victimizer. I think it was something like, if you use the victimizer's terminology, you promote their ideology. So I just tweaked it a tiny bit. If you use the victimizer's terminology, you promote their ideology. So if you're going around, and this is our position. Now, it doesn't have to be everybody's position. Remember that we had the issue with this phrase of racist liberal using the anti-white slur. And I'm going to admonish you all to not use the anti-white concept racist. But there are going to be people out there who, for whatever reason, they like this term, this concept. And then there are going to be others out there who are going to like other concepts where they use the anti-white terminology. And if you suggest, like Mark did today, said very clearly to everybody, he loves the phrase, really likes the phrase, or I can't remember exactly how he didn't say loves. I can't remember exactly how he said the phrase, but he really likes the phrase, what was it? Anti-white racist. And if Mark says that he really likes that and he's going to be using that, there's no reason to continue to say to him, why are you still using this? Why do you keep using this? He believes it's going to work for him. He believes it's going to work for our people, and more power to him. And if I don't think, I'm firmly convinced from decades of experience that it's not going to work. You're not going to be able to change that definition. But if Mark uses it and it works and gets us to the recapture of our destiny, then I support that 10,000 times over. So if that somehow gets us to the promised land, then I'm happy to get to that, go over whatever bridge it takes to get to the promised land of recapturing our destiny. Now, I will bet all of my money that it, and I don't have much, regrettably, but I will bet all of my money that it won't. But I'm sure that Mark, I know that if we cross the bridge to recapturing our destiny by not using their anti-white concepts, Mark will just as happily, just as willingly, just as gladly cross the bridge to the recapturing of our destiny and leave behind anything that wasn't working. So that is where the mindset has to be for us. We talked about this weeks ago with I gave it the terminology of ships crossing the ocean, and we're all on our oars and rowing. These are all different vehicles, all different concepts, heading to hopefully the exact same objective. That's certainly the case with Mark, and I hope it's the case with the others who are using some of these other phrases. And as long as we're all going in the same direction, then that's a good thing. That's a positive thing. We have the same objective. That's a positive thing. We can have disagreements about how to reach those objectives, and we can feel very strongly about those particular items where we disagree. But we should be working together and respecting each other and not attacking each other. And I'm very proud to say that all of you, the behavior that all of you who are going free has been absolutely capital. You all have been exemplars of the kinds of things that we talk about in Going Free all the time. So I couldn't be prouder of that. And I did want to say in this stream that Mark has made it clear. I didn't know Mark was using this this phrase anti-white racist when I started an intro, what was it, 2 weeks ago on his show, PWR, where I said I've been sent a bunch of clips, and the clips that I have been sent of people who are using this phrase anti-white racist, they all had they had a very specific flag that was on their along with their names for a country that's not a Western country. They and otherwise had a identities that were not Western. And so I wanted to make sure that these people are not going to be using a concept that is going to benefit us. I mean, that's obvious. So the fact that they were using this concept, this anti-white racist verbiage, was something that immediately, first of all, I saw the verbiage, anti-white racist, as detrimental, according to everything I have studied over the years in the lexicon that we use. But then when I saw it used by very cunning people, I saw them re-energizing this concept of racist that's dying. And they want to re-energize it. And where is it being re-energized? Where has it lost its energy? It's lost its energy and losing its energy in the body of white people, the community of white people around the Western kind around the world. White people increasingly are not caring when anti-whites say that they are a racist. But there's a way to revive the concept racist in their hearts and in their minds, because the concept racist is not dying in the non-white communities. Except aside, of course, for good non-white people who see how it's used against white people. But the majority of, or let's just say the anti-white non-white people, that concept is as strong as it ever has been. And the only place it's getting weak is for white people. The only place where it's losing its teeth is in the body of white people. Now, how do you revive it? If you are one of these anti-whites who have a little higher IQ and a little better connectivity and et cetera, how do you re-energize this? How do you revive it? How do you bring out the defibrillator, and you shock it back into existence? Well, the way you do that now is you pair it with the people who are being victimized. There's no denying it. There are hundreds of videos out there now. If there are hundreds of videos, you know that there are tens of thousands of attacks on white people. Of course, it's all fake. Just ask CNN and they'll tell you how fake that statement was. So you'll have to look into it for yourself. But in my view, if white people begin pairing the concept of racist that is dying inside of them, that has less and less teeth, with their own identity, they will revive it. And if they revive it, then it will again instantiate the anti-white narrative, because it is the central pillar to the anti-white narrative. And therefore, it will be able to be used against those same white people who revived it. Now, this is my opinion, and maybe I'm wrong. And I salute everybody who have made the suggestion and continue to make these suggestions to content producers and to friends and family and strangers. But if a content producer says, like what Mark said today, that he thinks it's going to be a great success to use the phrase anti-white racist, then just back off. Just at that point, you just say, all right, and I hope it works for you. I hope it succeeds. I hope you're able to take us to the promised land by using one of their concepts. And so that is an important point, because what can end up happening is that you can have something that really, where you can have a tool that really works, and you can be in a mechanic shop with a tool that really works, or whatever it might be. You could be an architect and you're working on the software, and there's a particular app that really enables an architect to do X on the software. But you've got a maybe 65-year-old architect that you work with, and for the past 30 years or 35 years, he has been using the old software without the new app. And he's able to design houses, design buildings, or what have you. And even though you are using the new app for designing houses and buildings, and you're able to do magnificent things, just have success after success using it, if you go to that guy and you say, hey, there's this great app, it could make your life a lot easier when you're designing the houses and buildings and bridges and etc. And he says, no, I like my software. I like what I've been using for the past 35 years. I'm going to stick with that. And you keep going back to him day after day. Eventually, he's going to become really resistant and resent you for trying to suggest the new app. He might even decide that he is going to eventually attack the new app as somehow not quite as good as the old app, not quite as good as the old ways. And you don't want to run into a circumstance like that. You don't want to cause somebody to get into that position where they feel like they're going to have to, like it's like they've made they don't have a way to save face. They feel like they're put in a position where they have to admit that they've been wrong. They're not able to just slide right into what is working. You're not allow the guy to start using the app that works on his own. Letting him know about the app, putting the app, maybe the software down there, the link where he can download it, and then stepping back and allowing him to explore it on his own. That's the best way. Driving him to become really angry over it, and then to make the statements that are like a self-defense statements, because the individual feels like they're stupid, or because they didn't adopt the new app, or what have you. That's just a way to cause problems. And Mark made it very clear today that he is of the mind that anti-white racist is going to be a successful to him. So there's no reason for us, any of you, to suggest to him anymore that he not use the anti-white concept racist. So having said that, I am going to suggest to all of you to continue not using the concept racist, the anti-white slur, anti-white concept racist, because as you know, it instantiates the anti-white narrative. It is the central pillar. The definition is not what is written in a dictionary. We've talked about where the definition exists in the real world. We've talked about the power of the anti-whites to continually reinforce it. We've talked about the fact, by way of the academia, by way of media, by way of television, by way of news, by way of books, by way of primary education, by way of every single thing in your life. We've talked about the fact that the definition of it as evil white people is, that definition is in corporate codes all around the world. That definition is in county, state, and federal government laws and codes. It is at millions of theses, doctoral theses, essays, books. The definition is evil white people. It doesn't mean discriminating. People of any race can be a racist. It doesn't mean, no matter how much you want that to be the case, it doesn't mean any of these other things. It means evil white people. And that is demonstrated that even those folks that say, well, it can mean just discrimination. It can mean just discrimination on the basis of race. It can mean just a feeling of superiority on the basis of race. it's proven that even the people who think that it doesn't mean that they say that it doesn't mean that they believe that it does, because they tack on a modifier on the front. So it either means that it's a feeling of superiority that any race can have over any other race, discrimination that any race can have over any other race. And if that's the case, then you just say the word racist. You just use the concept racist. You don't have to tack a modifier onto it. The moment you tack a modifier onto it, and this, again, this is my opinion, I could be wrong. I could be wrong. But the moment you tack a modifier onto it, you've just said, I'm acknowledging that it means evil white people. And I'm modifying it with what I'm saying right here. And the most long-standing one was, and we saw this used by conservatives, we saw this phrase used by anti-whites themselves, cunningly as all hell, I might add, this reverse racism. And white people immediately picked that up. And this is where I get a little fed up as all hell. Fed up as all hell. That people who think, whites who supposedly care about white well-being, well, as soon as an anti-white gives them a phrase to use, gives them an argument to use, they pick it up like instantly, and they start using it. And no excuse that, well, it takes, with the things that we use that are successful, I hear nothing but endless excuses. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to have the same mentality that I do when I am managing people. When I manage people, and this is the way I behave as an employee, I give no excuses. There's no excuse for failure. There's no excuse for anything not getting done that needed to be done. So if I do something and something goes wrong, then I say to my employer, and this is the way I've always been, this screwed up either because I didn't realize something and I screwed it up, or something happened outside of my control that I can now be cognizant of and in control of it for the next time. And it won't happen again. This will be done properly next time. So that's what I expect and have expected from the people that I've managed in business. When people come to me with endless excuses, didn't come to work on time because excuse, didn't get that report done because excuse, didn't get those sales done because excuse, didn't have that manager's meeting because excuse, didn't have excuse, I say, you're fired. You're going to have to be a winner and a success somewhere else. It's not going to be with us. So, and this is the way I'm going to suggest you all behave. If there's someone in your life and you say these are very simple, very easily learned lexicon and dialectics. The things are not mysterious. They're not esoteric. We're not talking about past lives. We're not talking about other dimensions. We're talking about, you can pick up Go Free and then you can turn your TV on and immediately validate that Go Free is real. You can look at Go Free, immediately pick up a novel and immediately validate that Go Free is real. This is empirical data. And you can apply it to yourself to see it working. You can come and listen to the testimonials of others and see that it works. And you can see it's very logical, very, very simple how we go A to B to C, and it works. So if somebody says to you in your life that, I'm not going to be able to remember a meme pathogen, that's just, you're asking too much of me. And then the next day, whatever it might be, the regime gives them a new phrase like summer of love in Seattle, and they can immediately pick that up. They are assholes. And just say, you're fired. You're too damn stupid. You've got a problem with something that works. You can't remember something that works. But when an anti-white tells you something to say, you somehow are like this sponge. You're somehow Stephen Hawking, and you instantly memorize everything and you immediately regurgitate it. You're fired. Get out. This is the attitude you have to have. because there's not enough time to deal with people that are able to remember and regurgitate everything the anti-whites give them, but claim somehow abject inability to remember to use anti-white, or to remember what a meme pathogen or what a meme curative is. Now we go back to what I was saying a moment ago. All of these white people instantly fell for the phrase reverse racism. And who was using that phrase before white people were using it? Anti-whites. The anti-whites started saying that in their literature that racism was evil white people, and reverse racism is in those very rare cases when a non-white person behaves like a white person. So they just gave it to you, and then you immediately adopted it and fell right for their trap like a bunch of drooling idiots in a retard morgue, ward, where everybody is, of course, smarter than everybody else, because by retarded, I mean brighter than the normal average person. And immediately started using this phrase, reverse racism, not realizing that every time you said that, you were staying within the anti-white narrative. You were instantiating everything they claim about white people. So you were saying that that's absolutely true, that the natural state of affairs is that white people are evil to non-white people. So I get frustrated when I learn that folks are unable to remember, or they give any of these sort of excuses. Now, I wanted to bring that up because I want to draw a nice dividing line between people who say that, oh, it's too much, or it's cringe to use a different vocabulary than the anti-whites say is okay. Because let me tell you how much of a winner you sound like when you say, no, it's really cringy unless you use the words that the anti-whites say is okay to use. That's really what's cringy. Something's wrong with you. I mean, you are one of those defective people. Trust me. You are defective if you say that the only vocabulary that we can use is what the anti-whites say is acceptable. So I want to draw a line between that, between the people who are like this and the people who think that, okay, this particular concept or this particular phrase, as Mark said today, is going to work. Mark believes that that's going to work. So there's a big difference between these kind of folks that are clearly brain damaged and somebody who thinks that something is going to work that we don't think is going to work. So I wanted to draw that distinction. In both cases, the thing that's similar for both of them is that if either somebody says, no, I think this phrase will work, and over here they say, oh, I just can't remember anything that'll work for me, and I can't use any language unless the anti-whites validate it and tell me it's acceptable. In both cases, if you come up against that, you just say, have a nice day, I'm going to move on to someone else. And move on to another white person. And most likely, if you get outside of, or more often than not, you get outside the white positive sphere, you're going to find fewer people who are personally wedded to particular vehicles and particular vernacular and particular modes, etc. But this comes now to the point, and I'll take a look at what you all are saying. This comes now to the point of the guy who hired a plane to fly over the soccer field with a banner that said, "White Lives Matter." Let me get a drink. Now, what we have said here is that White Lives Matter is just like the phrase, it's okay to be white. Both of them are okay by our estimation. They're not as good, as Underhill said, as no white guilt, for example, because the first two take place inside the anti-white narrative where you can't win, where the anti-whites get to write the rules. The latter takes place in our story, where we write the rules. For those who struggle with what does it really mean to be able to write the rules, or what does that mean? Really, what does it mean? Well, maybe an easy way to help you to this understanding is, I mean, I have to like get onto a spectrum and take it further down the spectrum for the folks who are maybe midwits or below midgetwits or something. If the anti-whites tomorrow, if the folks in charge of the regime said that, okay, now we're going to go by the narrative of the Lord of the Rings, except in their version of Lord of the Rings, they are the elves, they're the good guys, and it's all becomes multiracial, which is probably what, and anti-white, which is probably what Amazon or whoever purchased it is going to end up doing to the story anyhow, right? So just wait and see. And you people who disagree with us are the orcs. And they start saying this in their literature. They start saying it on the news. They start saying it in the movies and on the TV shows and that sort of thing. Likening everything now in that happens in the world to this narrative of Lord of the Rings, but where the anti-whites are the elves and the humans and the good guys, multiracial elves and humans. And anybody who objects are the orcs, or the monsters out there. And then what they do is when events happen in the real world, if it comports to this new narrative, they will share it with you. If they can manipulate it so that it really bolsters and proves the new narrative, well, then they will put it in the sky for you. And if it contradicts facts, evidence, events that happen, news items that contradict, well, they'll bury those underfoot. They won't tell you about them. They'll be hush crimes. There'll be hate hoaxes and that sort of thing. Then you'd be living. So does everybody who had a problem understanding this, are you in their story or are you in our story? You would be in their story if you spoke with the verbiage they used, if you adopted that you are, since you object to the new multiracial elves and multiracial humanity and Lord of the Rings, if you object to it, then you're an orc, and then you're going to walk around and start calling yourself an orc. You're a proud orc. Do you understand now how this works, whether or not you were in their story, the anti-white narrative, or in our story where you can be a hero? I hope that makes sense. It really is hard to break this down any simpler for people. When you have these conversations, as everybody is discovering in this sphere, in particular service to white well-being, when you have these conversations and you use anti-white and you use anti-whiteism, and when they say racist, you say that's an anti-white slur, only anti-whites say that. So why are you so anti-white? When you use the meme curatives that we have come up with, what is the one we like? That it's not the similarities that make us the same, it's the differences that make us different. When you force them into our conversation, into our story, where we are the good guys, where when you say, as our hero did with the sign, no white guilt, and immediately the anti-white had to come out and use the anti-white slur racist on him, and reveal the real motivation of the anti-white, that is the bad guy in the story. When you do this, you win. There was a conversation, and maybe I'll talk about it this coming Sunday, because I don't have enough time today. But it was like a conversation, instead of a tale, I was calling it a tale of two threads instead of a tale of two cities. There was an anti-white on Twitter who had made a comment to me and one other guy on a video that I think, who had made the video? Maybe it was HB, maybe it was somebody else, and made the clip. And the anti-white said some sentence to me, something despicable, where if you object to them tearing down statues of racists, then you're just a Nazi. My response was, you don't get to decide what our story, our history is. We get to decide, and this is why I've got to look back to see exactly what it is. And I ended it with, you are furious and you hate the fact that I don't have white guilt. Get used to it. The other gentleman responded to this anti-white with the old methods, talked about history, where here's a parallel between where destructive, monstrous people did this and anti-whites are doing this today. Talked about all of these different things, talked about crime stats, and in every case, the anti-white was able to come back with something to counter these arguments that I have seen lose throughout the years. And this individual went this long thread with this guy, going back and forth. The guy didn't respond to me. He didn't even bother because he knew he had lost. I said also to him, I don't care what excuse you give for white erasure. I don't care at all. So he knew that there was nothing he could say to me that was going to change my mind. He knew that he was in the position of the antagonist, that I had placed him there, and that anything he said at that point made him look bad. But in the other thread, in the other conversation, he was able to go back and forth, saying, no, it's we just want to put your statues in museums, right? We just want to. It was all lies. It was all lies. You know that bastard doesn't want to just put the statues in museums. They're setting them on fire. They're defecating on them. They're breaking them with sledgehammers. And it's just convenient for anti-whites. This is why you don't have conversations with them in their goddamn narrative. Because you get into their narrative, and then they can just conveniently say, in the morning, they could be out with a sledgehammer on Christopher Columbus's or George Washington's faces, or Robert E. Lee's face, crushing it to nothing, and then raising the statue up by the throat as the prior to actually raising white people up by the throat in mass hangings. And then later in the day, he can get into a conversation with you on Twitter or elsewhere in front of a group of white women. And he can say, well, no, not me. I would like to just take everything that matters to you, your street names, your park names, your statues, and I just want to tuck them away in a museum, see, because that just doesn't represent it. Don't you care about my feelings anymore? And then you have to try to overcome his argument about his feelings, when in reality, that prick was out destroying our statues that morning. So the conversation went back and forth like that. And then how did it end? This gentleman, young man, whatever he is, decided to just say, after this long thread, it was beautiful, you're just anti-white. And what happened? The anti-white wrote back to him confirming the victory of this young man or old man or whoever he was by defending himself. And that is where you want them to be, in our story, defending themselves. He came back and tried to say, oh, no, I don't dislike all white people. No, please, no. It's just these particular, and that is where you pour it on. That is where you go for the metaphorical throat in the conversation. Instead of debating his feelings and what he really wants, and is he lying, and what the genuine motivations are of these different groups that you end up naming, and then he can, for everything that you think you can claim inside the anti-white narrative, they will just say the exact opposite. I have a anti-white, non-white woman, and I want to share this and speak to it next week on Sunday if I can remember it. Well, she wrote on one of my threads that her people, and it was specifically, I'll go ahead and say it was an anti-white black woman who said her people don't have, at least this is the avatar, this is who she's pretending, that this person's pretending to be. Her people don't have the same evil inside them that white people have. And so her people wouldn't mistreat us the way you white people mistreated that particular group of non-white people. Are you really going to have a conversation inside that narrative? Inside that story? Are you really going to start citing data? That would be the dumbest ass thing to do. And so I care about you all. I want to recapture our destiny. I want you to win. I want you to have good lives. I want you to access your well-being by way of our group's well-being. And we're only going to do it by getting away from these tired, old, useless, worthless efforts that never win. You got it? So that for those other, I know everybody, I know there's a big group of you out there who totally get this. I'm not speaking to you. I salute every one of you who get this and are out there just crushing it for service to white well-being. God bless every single one of you. But for the others, and thank God this one person on this thread figured it out finally and just finally said to this anti-white that you're just an anti-white. And that was finally the end of it. The rest of that thread, that poor guy was losing his ass off, and there was no way to win. Absolutely no way. Because the anti-white was just going to lie the entire time. The anti-white could come up with a lying fact for every truthful fact that you shared. Going to come up with a totally different interpretation of history than your interpretation of history. And it doesn't matter how right you are. It doesn't matter. You're still going to lose if you're in their story. Period. Everybody knows this. And this is why I get so frustrated with this group of people who say, not gonna start using something that works, but because it's not approved by the anti-whites. Only anti-white speech is permissible. That's what I'll use. So now to the guy, and I'll look at your comments. Now to the guy in the plane. Not the guy in the plane, but the guy who hired the plane. The guy who hired the plane decided he was going to put up a banner that said White Lives Matter. The problem with White Lives Matter, and it's, as I say, White Lives Matter and it's okay to be white are okay, just like Underhill said. They're okay. If you can, I would suggest if you're going to post, it's okay to be white or White Lives Matter, make sure that you do it in a way that you're not going to be caught for it. It's certainly now the phrase White Lives Matter is something that anti-whites are going to come after with all the power that they can muster. And they're going to feel totally justified. It's like these moments, this casus belli for war. It's like everything is okay for a certain time period because some event happened and now anything can be done to you. Because some event happened somewhere, right? So in this case, it would be, well, Floyd died. So now we can prevent you from being able to purchase food, make your car and house payments, electric payments, water payments, etc., by getting you fired from your job and making it difficult for you to work at all. So if you want to post that, more power to you. If you want to post White Lives Matter, more power to you. But do it without being caught for it, because you are going to be absolutely excoriated. They are going to bring hell down on top of you, just as they did for this poor guy who hired the airplane to fly over the field with a sign that says White Lives Matter. So they found out who he was, because of course they would. Of course they would right now, because if it was normally unethical to share this information, they will share it. If it is normal not to prosecute it, and they can get away with prosecuting it, they will prosecute it. If it is normal and ethical and moral to not punish the guy who allowed himself to be hired to tow this banner, and they can punish him for taking that job by maybe getting him dismissed, taking his license away or what have you, now is the time that they will do it. Because this is the casus belli. Floyd died. Anything goes right now. It's just like after 9/11, you can just pick a country on the world, on the planet, and well, we'll invade that one, we'll invade that one, whatever. Because it's just, now's the moment, heat of the moment, crisis, whatever. Things can be done that aren't normally done. Rules, laws, morality tossed out the window, and extremes must be fought by extremes, and that means you're going to be found, you're going to be fired. This is why I wish I had done a video. So many content producers, it's immediately struck me as nobody should say anything negative about that wonderful group of people at Black Lives Matter. Nobody should say anything negative or criticize them or connect them to crime or say that they're behind any of these sorts of things because of everything I just said in the preceding 2 minutes. But apparently it didn't strike everybody the same way. And so people talked about it and they said these negative things about this wonderful group of people and just asked CNN how splendid they are. And they lost channels. They had streams shut off midway. They got strikes. They can't stream and all of this kind of as a consequence. So what I was saying on PWR today was, regrettably, for this gentleman and his girlfriend, both of them fired from their jobs, and who knows how what kind of training that they've gone through, and how particularly overly focused their industry is. If whatever their jobs may be, if they are highly focused, he might and she might not be able to work again, because there might be too few in their fields that they've been trained for. There might be too few employers out there because it's so focused and hyper specialized what they do that they won't be able to get work in their field again, which means you'll be telling them what you want in your latte. And that's terrible. It's worse than terrible, because inadvertently what has happened here is that he has caused, and he didn't want to cause this, but he has been a part of terrorizing the white population out of standing up for white well-being. Because by hiring this banner to be flown over top of the field, he was discovered by anti-whites, and they have gotten him and a girlfriend unrelated to the entire thing fired from their jobs for it, and doxed them. So who knows what else is going to happen? Who knows what other violent anti-white attacks there will be? What do you think that's going to do to other white people out there who are thinking about fighting for white well-being? Do you think that's going to embolden them? Oh, I might lose my job. I might cause my family members to lose their jobs. I might end up getting violent anti-whites to discover where I live. So this is not the kind of, in my opinion, nobody should be jeopardizing themselves, first of all, because we need your service to white well-being. We need you doing it, so you need to be as safe as you can possibly be. Now, if you have a job, like Mark was brilliantly talking about, where you're working for yourself, you do plumbing, you do auto mechanics, you do whatever, and you are your own boss, you have endless opportunity to feed the pipeline, and you don't have to worry about losing your profession. That is a more stable place to be. It's also a more stable place to be if you work below your level of competence and below your level of earning, so that if they do discover you and get you dismissed from your job, it's not going to hurt as bad. You're living within your means, and you'll be able to get another job somewhere commensurate in pay. So that's another opportunity or another option for some people out there. But what I would have suggested, it's all, now this is after the fact, of course, I don't know who this person is, but if there's anybody else out there who wants to put up a banner and they're thinking about saying white lives matter, as I said earlier, make sure you don't get caught. So if it's going to be on a road, on a highway, a bridge, or something like this, of course, only if it's legal to put it there. Don't put a banner or sign anywhere where it's illegal. But if it's legal to put a banner or a sign somewhere, make sure that your name is not attached to it. Make sure that they can't follow a trail back to you, even if you say, well, it would be totally unethical for the company that I hired to give my name. Screw that. Open your eyes. They're going to give your name away. They're going to give your info away. So don't rely on that in times like these extraordinary moments after something like St. Floyd dies. If on the other hand, you want to tow a banner, if, on the other hand, somebody's going to potentially find out who you are, then make sure you're saying something that is either outside the anti-white narrative, like no white guilt, because for all of the reasons we have stated infinitely about how that is better, it's better to be outside the anti-white narrative. Think about being called before an anti-white tribunal at school or at work, and you could just say, look, I have no white guilt. I don't have anything against those people over there. They can do what they want, but I'm not going to have white guilt. That's all I'm saying. Are you in a better position there than to try to disabuse an anti-white tribunal, which could be your bosses, which, as I say, could be people at school that are deciding whether or not to throw? Are you in a better position of saying, look, I just have no white guilt. I have nothing to do with any of those other things. I made a statement about having white guilt as an individual. I'm a white person. Are you in a better position to be there, or try to disabuse the tribunal of their definition of the word racist? Try to disabuse the tribunal of what you mean when you say white lives matter. Because right now, white lives matter, as far as all the anti-whites are concerned out there, and therefore the anti-white regime, and therefore the organizations that are giving in toto over $1 billion to one specific group, and then money to others, these anti-white groups, that this white lives matter means white supremacy. Try to disabuse them of that. Are you going to be in a better position to disabuse them of that? Or are you going to be in a better position to say, look, you're a white person and you just are proclaiming that you don't have white guilt? And if that's a hard one for you, then you obviously need a helping hand to order food at a fast food joint. That should be computed like this. So if you say, well, you know, it's true, I do have a hard time ordering at a fast food joint, then yes, this is not going to be for you. But I want you to be safe. So if you want to be putting up a banner where your name is going to be attached, towing behind an airplane, have it say something outside of the anti-white narrative like no white guilt. Or if you want to do something really edgy and reveal what the anti-whites are really saying, put them into a state that is going to cause them much consternation, have that banner say Black Lives Matter more. BLMM. Because there's no way that in this climate right now that white people are going to be falling all over themselves to say, no, they don't, in the anti-white world. And it would be very easy for you to say anything you want about what that means to you. What does it mean? What does the more mean to you? I mean, do I have to do all of the thinking? What does the more mean to you? If you were to put up a banner that say Black Lives Matter more, you could say more than they used to the anti-white tribunal, to your boss leering over your desk at you. I mean, shit's sake. I feel sometimes, I'm not even going to say it. I'm not even going to say it. But I want to see, I know I asked Red Pill Bulgaria earlier because about, and I probably missed it. So if you're still here, brother, please tag me again, put it back up, what you said, or put it in the question widget. If somebody else saw what Red Pill said, please tag me as No White Guilt on the No White Guilt channel, as Discipline with NWG on that channel, and tell me what Red Pill Bulgaria said. If it was actually Red Pill Bulgaria who was in the chat that had the same name over on D Live. Bartleby says, smash the like button. Thank you so much, brother. All right, this is not going to work. I really hate that I can't just go through here. Althea says, the propagator of no white guilt is the propagator of white roses, the father stock. That's brilliant. Thank you. Very kind. Red Eagle says he confirmed it was him. Okay, let me go up and see if it's still available. Hopefully it is. Since this is advanced placement, we don't have as many people as Groundhog Fury is here. Great to see you, dear brother. The Lexicon is the linguistic equivalent. Yes, indeed. Hold on. My chat just. Oh. See, this is why I hate. Why it just doesn't leave everything up for me. Let's see if I can get it back. And I will also start the refresh. Over here. No, that's not it. I want to get up the. I apologize, I don't have the Cash app up and running. We ran your intro today, brother. Earlier at the beginning of the stream. All right. Well, maybe we won't be able to get. Let's see if I still have Red Pill Bulgaria's tag. Nathan, I found so refreshing to hear you calling this stuff out. It is increasingly exasperating to see people talking inside the anti-white narrative while victimizers are charging us. Yeah, precisely. HB 2014 is here. Great to see you, good brother. So many great heroes. I salute every one of you. Okay, it's the equivalent of the bypassing the Mazenot line. Yes, Groundhog Fury. Great to see you, brother. It absolutely is. Red Eagle. What's the small red thing on the book, Born Good? That is a artificial cardinal. Little cardinal baby. Brought your attention to the book, didn't it? Nordic Nightmare. The simple phrase, White Lives Matter, is waking up British vagues. Waking up the British vagues. Well, if that's working for you, then go ahead and use it. I will tell you, and so that you're prepared, that it's going to be easy to dismiss this. So don't wed yourself to White Lives Matter, because an clever anti-white will simply say, of course White Lives Matter. They've mattered too much. That's why you have all of this preferential treatment as a white person. So now all you're doing is stating the obvious by saying White Lives Matter, and they've just mattered too much for too long, and these other groups haven't mattered enough. So that a shrewd anti-white is going to, it's like stick their foot out and make you fall right on your face. So get ready for those kinds of responses. What are you going to say when they say that you have white privilege? Well, that's White Lives Matter too much. They matter so much that you have white privilege. You see how you're still in their narrative. So they matter so much that you have white privilege, and now you're affirming that there's white privilege. Now you're affirming that. So get ready for those kind of responses from clever anti-whites, and rest assured the ones who are going to be in your media are going to be the ones who will be saying this. And then, unlike our community, when the intelligent anti-whites tell the dumb anti-whites to say that, or the average intelligent anti-whites to respond that way, they will all instantly do so. So it won't just be the brilliant anti-white on the television, not the actual talking head. Those are usually idiots. But the person telling the talking heads, or the people telling the talking heads what to say, it won't just be them that'll then be giving that response, that White Lives Matter too much. That's the problem, buddy. Why are you such a racist? instead of them saying it, it's going to be the guy standing at the lathe beside you that will be saying it. It's going to be the guy pumping the gas beside you, or pumping the petrol beside you, that'll be saying it. So that's what happens when that's what happens when you're inside the anti-white narrative. That's how they flip it right around on you. So I wish you all the best in using this White Lives Matter in the UK and seeing where it will take you. I hope it reaches everyone. I hope for some reason that the smart anti-whites who tell the rest of them what to say, I hope for some reason maybe they all start using LSD and they can't think straight anymore, and so they don't think of that. I just thought of that response in a second. So I hope that they're all drunk and on drugs, and so they can't tell the rest of them what to say, and the White Lives Matter will just take us to the promised land. My guess is that they won't, though. My guess is that you're going to hear your prominent talking heads making the sort of response to it that I just made. And I'll be open to people coming back and apologizing. Not you specifically, Nordic Nightmare. You're not saying that. You're saying that it's working in the UK. You're not saying that you should use White Lives, or we should use White Lives Matter in the place of something I'm recommending. So not you, but those people out there that are saying that sort of thing. I'll be open to the apologies. I doubt they'll come. They never do. I've been in this sphere so long, and it doesn't matter how many times that I say, look, don't do this, because I've seen this fail. I know what they're going to do in response, and then happens, and nobody has integrity. Apparently, I'm like one of very few who go back and say, holy, you're right. Holy Sierra, you were right. I got that one wrong. All right, let's see. I'm still searching. And remember to please tag me as No White Guilt on the No White Guilt channel. Millennial Honky. Well said, Jason. I might just get a flag made and put it on my truck instead, No White Guilt. Hey, man, if you get a flag that says No White Guilt on it, you better get a picture and send me, direct message me that, or write me at through the collectibles store, because you can reach me through there. Write me there and share that picture, and we will share not enough of your truck that you'll be identifiable. We want to keep you safe, but that we could show off to everyone else that indeed you are one of our heroes and you're doing the right thing, getting out there and making that sort of statement. Southern Bloom, Fast Eddie, Monty, great to see you. There's the great Promethean Promulgation. Great to see you. Dissident Agnostic, to be fair, White Lives Matter was a response to the killing of white Britons. No White Guilt wouldn't convey the correct message. I wouldn't convey with Dissident Agnostic. Did you just give me a motivation that I didn't actually have? Where's your evidence for the motivation that I wouldn't convey the correct message? You see, this is despicable. So if you're ready to take that back, then I will accept the apology. At no point did I refuse what you are to do, what you are claiming I did here. White Lives Matter, you say, was a response to the killing of white Britons. So it occurred then before Black Lives Matter. It wasn't a response to Black Lives Matter. You have a specific case of it occurring, White Lives Matter, occurring prior to the creation of the term Black Lives Matter. Because if it came after the term Black Lives Matter, then it is just the inverse, of which, as I just stated, and you should have been able to follow, that it just instantiates for the anti-white narrative that white people are affirming their white privilege. That is going to be their response. I'm not saying that's the response, or that's an objective reality. I'm saying that I care about all of you. I want you converting, bringing our people over to going free in your friends, family, and strangers, so that we can recapture our destiny and stop going down the same road. So I don't want you saying something for your own good. I'm not going to suggest things for your own good for you to say something that an anti-white in front of you is going to be able to turn around and make you look like a jackass. So if you say, no, screw that, no white guilt, I'm gonna go use this instead, because it makes me, for whatever reasons you want to give, to share that phrase, I'm gonna go use that instead. Well, then when they make you look like a jackass, you can't blame me. Nordic Nightmare says, you've missed the point of why he did it. Why the guy flew the banner. I don't know. Let me say, I'm sure that's what you're speaking to. Where did this notion come from that I objected to the guy paying for this banner to fly over the stadium? Where did that come from? I was just on PWR. I know exactly what I said. I endorsed, and I said it was well done for the guy to put his own money out there. He put his identity out there. Now he's caught. I don't know if he thought ahead of time that, oh, well, this business transaction should be kept private, and so no one will find out who I was. I don't know if he thought any of that, or if he knew, screw it, I don't care if I get caught for doing this. I'm going to do it anyhow because I'm sick of this. Good on him. I don't know. I said it, I think, 3 times during PWR, that good on this guy for doing that. Now, for having this banner flown across. So I hope I don't have to repeat this anymore. If anybody else says that I am condemning the guy who had the banner flown over top of the stadium, then all of you can correct that person. I don't know how many times I have to endorse the guy. What I'm saying is that if he had instead flown Black Lives Matter more, he would have made a more poignant point. He would have been able to evade the condemnation, or he would have had a much better chance at evading the condemnation and perhaps the retribution for being heretical, because he could have claimed his views were other than what his views actually are, and at the same time instigated a conversation that would influence a great many conversations that are out there. So is a conversation that would have influenced conversations. Do they matter more? Is that what this is about? That would have been far more. I mean, do I have to get out like colored blocks to try to make these points? Would you rather have people sitting around debating whether or not Black Lives Matter more is the goal of these people, or what do they really mean with this Black Lives Matter more? What did the guy who hired it mean? What are these people in the planes meaning? And then you can argue from your position that, well, look at what they want. They want all of this preferential treatment, so clearly they mean more. And then you have your anti-white opposition are saying back to you, no, on the defensive. No, they don't mean more. And then you say to them, well, if they don't mean more, then why do they want all this preferential treatment? So clearly they mean more, right? And then they're on the defensive having to say, no. Well, they just want preferential because of, and then they have to go off on some sort of defensive position and they're winning. Would you rather have that conversation, or would you rather have the conversation where was the guy a white supremacist who said white lives matter in the airplane? Because who's denying that white lives matter? And then all of the other things I just said. So do you want to be on the defensive and having to speak for someone you don't know? Maybe this guy is a perfect example. I don't know anything about him. Maybe he is. Maybe they're going to report to us next. What if you were to say this guy's a great guy, and then next week they say, well, by the way, they went into his house and it's covered in Nazi memorabilia or something. So What conversations do you want to have? So good on somebody, and in particular this guy, who in whatever way he could, whatever capacity he had at his means intellectually, he certainly hasn't learned about going free yet. With whatever means he had, he went out there into the contest and did what he could to resist. Good on him. I am the first person to pat him on the back for doing so. Now, I could have kept him safer. I could have saved his job, or much more likely been able to save his job. I could have saved his girlfriend's job. Are these people going to have their heads caved in by anti-whites wearing balaclavas? If they do, maybe I could have saved him from that. I could have created a conversation that would be easier for you to win. But nonetheless, I'm saying good on this guy. Good on this guy for doing what he could with the abilities that he had, with the money that he had. And good on the pilot who did it, even though he knew what he was going to be trailing behind the airplane was going to bring the ire down of the anti-white regime. Good on all of them. I mean, I remember reading about, what was it, during World War II, I think and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong here. I think it was during World War II when there was actually a battle where the Poles rode cavalry on horses out to confront the German tanks that were rolling in. So of course they didn't have a snowball's chance in a furnace, but good on them for those individual men for doing what they thought in that moment. That was all they had access to, were these proud horses and their proud rifles and weapons, and brave men. Good on them for going out there and doing what they could do. Same attitude I have for this guy who had that banner towed behind the airplane. Good on him. I could have saved him, or potentially saved him, a lot of grief, and also put you all in a better situation, but so be it. I mean, that's where this is. People are going to try different options, and maybe when they get tired of losing jobs and having their head caved in, and they want to try something that is utterly defensible, then they can try these things. But until then we'll just be open, and business will be open for them when they want to show up. But that's my opinion on the guy. And then by saying, I think maybe this is where maybe some folks are getting mixed up, by saying that ultimately he has ended up harming our cause, people think I'm condemning him. This is just low IQ. You should be able to take these moments in history, in history, which is anything now that's past. I'm not talking about past world wars now, but in these past days, you should be able to say, okay, no white guilt, pats him on the back for doing what he could when he did it. And at the same time, no white guilt laments that the act has ended up damaging the community and our ability to effectively fight for our well-being. And how has it done that? It's done that because it's called fear of the mad dog. The white people out there are seeing the consequences of what happens when you go up against the anti-white regime. And instead of seeing victories, why do you think there are so few white people that want to participate? Instead of seeing victories, they see this. They see somebody losing their job. They see the person's girlfriend losing their job. What's going to happen? What else is going to happen to this person? Wouldn't it be better if he had flown a banner that would have started a conversation that you could then win in your circles with the people you're debating or arguing with, and he would have kept his job? We wouldn't even know who he was, because maybe they wouldn't have released the records, or you find out who he is and he can't be fired for thinking that Black Lives Matter more. I mean, wouldn't that be better? I think he would say so. I think his girlfriend would say so. So let me tell you right now what's going to happen. There are going to be a lot of arguments inside of households, especially it's going to be more of our women than men, but there'll be some men as well behaving this way toward their women because they're effeminate losers. But they're going to say, no, you will not go out there and defend the statue. No, you will not go do X, Y, Z. No, you will not. And I will make your life hell in this house. If you think you're going to go out there and pass out leaflets or put up a banner or tow a banner behind an airplane or whatever it is, because don't you remember what they did to that guy and his girlfriend? And I'm not going to lose my job as the wife in this couple because you go out there and put a banner up somewhere. That conversation is going to be happening all over the West as a consequence. Now, the guy's decision has nothing, he in that moment, he didn't intend for any of that to happen. He was doing the right thing with what he had and the courageous thing with the courage that he could muster. Nonetheless, this is going to be the consequence. So you should be intelligent enough, we should be in this sphere intelligent enough to say, hold both of those perspectives. And if it's too much trouble, then get your coloring book out. John Doe says, I have no white guilt and loving it. Why should I have guilt? I'm a good person with strength. Amen to that, brother. Ambitious says, is there an example of someone publicly saying no white guilt and getting doxxed, canceled less or less harshly? Infinite. We have people all the time giving testimonials and witnessing to the power of the Lexicon and dialectics. Attend our Going Free streams. You will see a great many. And in fact, if Nathan is here or still here, he just gave, pardon me, a great one on one of the threads, great testimonial yesterday, I think it was. So yeah, it's infinite. And more importantly, you, I'm sure, Ambitious, are able to see the reason, logic, and evidence there of how saying that you're not guilty is going to be a far superior and far more of a defensible position than adopting a phrase that the anti-whites have said is white supremacy, right? So you're smart enough to figure that out. I just got done saying about you're going to have more luck saying that you're not, that you have no white guilt and keep your job, keep your place at school, or disabusing your boss or the admin at your school of the definition of racism, the definition of etc. All right, regrettably, the Red Pill Bulgaria, it's gone, it's long gone. So if you're still here, I'm going to have to see it again. You'll have to tag me again, or somebody else can write what Red Pill Bulgaria said and tag me. I'll have a look at it. Red Eagle, you're going to have to defend that position. Imminent Rain is here and writing the great Imminent Rain, ladies and gentlemen. We love him, a rising star, supernova in our skies. Promethean hails so hard, no white guilt. I left a couple of questions on the Discipline channel. You got some good folks over here. All right, I'll check that. I'll swivel right back around. Dissident Agnostic says I misunderstood. All right, no worries. Straighten me out on it if I misunderstood. Dissident Agnostic says, talking about a string of text, not me personally. Okay. I'm not exactly sure what string of text it was, but if I misunderstood, then that was on me. So thank you for pointing it out. Jerry concludes that he would have got the same amount of hassle for flying a no white guilt banner, possibly more. The best thing about no white guilt, Jerry, go ahead and try it. Go ahead and try it, and you'll see that you're not seeing it right now, obviously. But the moment you say no white guilt, they have to attack you for not having white guilt, which reveals that they want you to be guilted. They have just dropped all of their pretexts about little crying brown children and non-white criminals dying because they're not handled carefully enough. That is infinitely more powerful. And if you can't compute that, then no worries. Just observe the outcomes that we have. Art Acrobat says, white privilege, in quotes, is our enemy's language. That's why we should never talk to anti-whites in their words. Amen. William Runner says, I will be changing my name to Rick772. It corresponds to other media channels. All right, brother. Well, I'll try to remember to connect those together. Great. Thank you for pointing that out. Coconut says, you are so positive. No white guilt. Thank you. Okay. Red Pill says, yeah, it was me, but I didn't mean it to be too negative, in quotes. Just that sometimes the lexicon can be counterproductive if you push it too hard, too much. Well, here in what we do for Going Free, it's going to be pushed relentlessly because I want you all to succeed. I don't, by you all using this, how else, what's my benefit? I mean, it seems to be like with some of these objections that somehow I'm deriving some sort of benefit other than my people winning. What other benefit do I get out of it? Nobody is, when somebody uses this lexicon and crushes some anti-white or brings their whole family over, as we had, who was it last week? Somebody brought their whole family over. Their whole life, they have been using the old ways, trying to bring their family around. Nothing, resistance, pushing back. Switch over to Going Free, and in a month and a half or so, whole family comes over to Going Free. What does that do for me? Aside from our people winning. So if you've got a problem with me benefiting from our whole people winning, then you are in the wrong line of cause. You need to get somewhere else. Because you better want us to be winning all of the conversations. You better want us to be converting everybody in our lives, our families, our friends, etc. You better want that. That's the only thing I get out of that. So now what I spoke to earlier, and Red Pill, it definitely did not sound, and if you misspoke, if you're saying you misspoke, you wrote it differently than you mean. Because I think I recalled during the stream that you wrote that the lexicon was cringe and it had to be done away with. Something along that line. If that's the problem, then why are you here? If the lexicon is cringe, then what you're saying is you're only the only speech that is acceptable is a speech that has been approved by anti-whites. And if that's the case, then you're in the wrong place. So if you miswrote there and you didn't mean it to say that the lexicon is cringe and that it has to be approved by the anti-whites, then you can apologize for that. Because I'm not, people, if you want to use the anti-white approved dialectics and lexicon because you think it will work, then more power to you. I want you to win. I want you to, for white well-being. I want you to recapture our destiny. So if you are going to use the anti-white lexicon and you're going to use their argumentation, you're going to be like Rush Limbaugh, and you're going to use all this homophobe, and you're going to use all of these different phrases, and you are going to win. You really believe you're going to win with that? Then please go win so that I can stop doing all of this against all of this headwind. Please just go do it and win. And then we can all, after having recaptured our destiny, we can all go to our separate corners and live our lives in peace and happiness, have families, and make beautiful memories. More power to you. More power to all of those guys that want to go out there and they want to talk about these esoteric philosophical phraseology, pulling out pieces of different eras in history, combining them with other pieces, and then passing that on to the general public as though it's something that they could say, and the rest of the general public will understand the irony of this tiny little cloistered group. If you think you can win that way, and you can, then do so, and I will gladly embrace the recapturing of our destiny. That's all I want. But don't come around to the work that we're doing where we are having success and say, oh, what you're doing is cringy. What you're doing is you're not speaking with approved anti-white terminology, because I'm not going to, ever. I'm never going to call them by the names that they take for themselves, just like they never call us by the names we take for ourselves. Why do they not do that? Because they're smart. That's why. Or their dumb ones are smart enough to obey their smart ones. So what we were saying at the beginning of the show is, don't browbeat. And it's just like I invited Red Pill Bulgaria to leave. If I'm not going to browbeat you, brother, if you think this is cringy, you don't like the lexicon, I'm inviting you to just get the hell out. If you you went too far, you said something stupid, you want to apologize, please, you're welcome to stay, and I appreciate the apology. But don't browbeat people. Don't. If somebody in your life, if some content producer specifically states, no, I'm going to speak this way, like we had a couple weeks ago with some content producers say they were going to speak a certain way, or Mark said that he's going to speak a certain way. Once they say that, then that's it. There's no need to browbeat these people into trying to use something that they have made an adult decision not to use. So that's all there is to that. No browbeating. We are inviting people to participate in something that will improve their lives, that has improved lives, that is changing lives. I'm open. I am an empiricist. So in the mode of Aristotle, and have been my whole life, ever since I read all of this man that was many years ago, all of this man who's said to be arguably the most intelligent person to ever live, I've been an empiricist. That means I approach an item or a challenge with reason, logic, and evidence. I apply the reason and the logic. I see what happens in its application in the real world, and then I yield always to the results of the real world. If you want to show me out there where people have been, the conservatives have been using the anti-whites lexicon and dialectics for a very, very long time. If you want to show me where they've changed lives with it, if you want to show me where they have done anything but lose, I'm willing to look at it. There must be some really micro case somewhere that I've missed, because everywhere that I've seen, I see these conservative families being torn apart. I see their children hating their parents because their parents are haters, their parents are backward, their parents are etc. And the children becoming rabid anti-whites. And then the conservatives will call them progressives, or they'll call them liberals, or they'll call them social justice warriors, as though justice is something in your head that you can mean something other than justice. If you can't mean tree, mean something other than tree, then you can't make justice mean something other than justice. Why do you think the Democrats call, for example, they call all of these children of these border crossers dreamers? Why don't they call them nightmares? Why don't they say why don't they call them that? Why don't they just say, well, they're nightmares? Really, what's that mean? Well, it means that they just want to be in America. They have they have visions for a future for themselves. And well, it seems kind of odd that you would call them nightmares then instead of dreamers, doesn't it? I see Misty here. Great to see you. Mrs. Jess Horst, great to see you. We Are the Remnants are here. Wonderful to see you. All right, let's take a look at what you all. I think I've been covering these. I mean, we had this Bubba guy who, of course, was had a garage door pull that he claimed this is a hate hoax because he claimed that he was being threatened by the garage pull, that it was a noose. Of course, you better ask CNN because maybe if they're still saying it's a noose, then it is. And we have other hate hoaxes. And you know what will, those who are going free, they have a vocabulary for this. And I didn't come up with hate hoax or hush crime. These are old terms that nobody uses. And I employed them and they worked. And so that's why they're here. So when we have a hate hoax, they become a hush crime because now it's a crime against all of white people, but it's not going to be talked about anymore. Now, what's the difference? You could call this a hush crime, what Bubba did and what CNN did. These anti-white entities, you could call it a hush crime and do a great deal of good for our people, because then you're using premises that put you in a powerful position relative to your interlocutors. You're saying that the people who are in charge, who have the ability to hush something so that no one finds out, are anti-white. Or you could say it was racist of Bubba to say this about white people. Make your choice. Volkish Warrior, question widget is full. Oh, Daniel over here has financially gifted $10. A big thank you to Daniel. They deleted my channel, Ohesian Outlaw. Oh my God, my PayPal credit card wouldn't let me donate either. These childish tactics from the anti-whites make me smile because I know we are unstoppable. Damn, I'm really sorry to hear that. It absolutely is correct. What you just wrote is absolutely correct. The anti-whites censor you because you were saying something effective. Jump right back up, get on 2 platforms as I do, instead of just one, and get right back to it. Send me the links, brother, and I will share your material. And Godspeed to you. I salute you for that. Vogish Warrior Jason is the kind of guy who hides in the grass behind the Phragmites and waits for his unsuspecting victim before jumping out and whacking them on the head with going free. Maybe I might not. I might not whack. I might tickle them with going free. Thank you, though, Vokish Warrior. I'm sad that both the hero who flew the White Lives Matter plane and his wife got fired. Scum Media is raising money for them. Can you share the link? Oh, this is a GoFundMe? Yeah, I'll share their link in the live chat right now. Okay, if that's them, then if those are the right folks, then please support these poor folks who've lost both their jobs, and I hope their training is not too specialized and they can find work elsewhere. Would you please read this article? I like this website. They have good enough lexicon. I will take a look at it. We're not going to be here much longer, though, because I've already been here, as is typical, longer than I want. It takes a long time to discuss these things and to talk about all of the different angles and perspectives, hues, etc. It can be very nuanced, and that's why these things can often run longer than intended. Yiz the Eunuch is over here, and thank you very much, Vogish Warrior, for supplying the link to support this couple so that we could get their information out there. Yeah, and thanks to Scum Media for putting that together. Yiz the Eunuch, what would be a good day time of the week for my community live show we discussed? I don't want to interfere with primary personalities, time slots, etc. I will write you back on that, because I got to think about who is airing when. It's a difficult thing because these aren't exactly solid time slots, but and I want to find a time not just that doesn't necessarily overlap somebody, but is going to be a successful time slot where you get the most people. Thank you for that. And anybody in the chat who has any ideas for Yiz about when would be a good time to air and run with her live stream, please let her know. So thank you for that, and thank you for your work to White Wellbeing. I'll check over here on Cash App, and I'll slide through here as well to see if I've missed anybody. And if I also want to say that if I've misrepresented anybody, I'm open to being corrected. If I misunderstood, as the one gentleman was saying that I misunderstood the point a little bit there, I'm open to being corrected on that, and I will happily look at anything else you or anybody else has to share to correct me where I've gone astray. That's what I expect of my friends, is to correct me when I've gone astray. So I appreciate that as well. I am probably more likely to be wrong than the average person. I am fallible, just like every human being is. I'm willing to admit that, and I'm willing to correct where I have gone wrong. So whether it's a misunderstanding, or when it comes to the promotion of Lexicon and dialectics, the things that make its way out to the broader public are the things that have, on a much more focused level, been experimented with and used repeatedly, and other people giving input, and etc. And then if it works, then it comes out to the larger public. And if into the larger public it, for whatever reason, shows the different results, then I will immediately pull it back. I didn't have success in business because my self-worth was tied to any individual decision. I went with whatever worked pragmatically. If it failed, it went. If it worked, it came in. And I didn't care whether I came up with it or somebody else came up with it, because all that matters is achieving the objective. This is why I say, when somebody who is a hero like Mark Collett, and who has done so much over the years, endured so much, put up with so much over the years, when somebody like that says, and who's the honesty, the probity of what he is trying to do, something positive for our people, when that is beyond question, it is the absolute unquestionable truth. When somebody like that says, I think this over here is going to work, then I honestly believe that he thinks that that's going to work. I don't have to agree with the opinion that it's going to work, but I sure as hell hope it will. I sure as hell hope he'll recapture our destiny. And if it doesn't, then I will be here with a different idea that may work. And I will also be ready to adopt whatever is working. If he thinks that that's going to work and it's working, then I will be ready to move with whatever bridge, as I say, that takes us to the promised land of recapturing our destiny. Althea is here. Great to see you, dear lady. Very hard worker, ladies and gentlemen, for White Wellbeing. Just in, grand jury indicts these, I guess, is the police officers. That is absolutely despicable. Thank you for that info. We are the remnants. Yes, also no white guilt. This is also a one-off, like a shocker. Then we move on. Not totally sure. I think I know what you're talking about. And if so, then yeah, I agree. Nathan says, I'm utterly baffled beyond belief at why a banner for our people would say anything but no white guilt. For Christ's sake, you've given us the silver bullet. Thank you so much for writing that. Yes, indeed. For a white person to say, I'm not going to kneel because I don't have any white guilt. What then does the anti-white have to do? The anti-white has to say, you have to feel guilt. Your 5-year-old daughter has to feel guilt. That baby in the womb has to feel guilt if it's white. You all have to feel guilt. You're all responsible. You all have to pay. What effect do you think that's going to have on the masses of white people? So thank you, Nathan. Watch Rider is here. Great to see you, brother. Another hero in the community. Says, hello, folks. Been busy in the Valoroma shipping yard creating 3D wonders. That's great. That's great. Using vocabulary from Prometheus Rising. Right. Red Eagle's saying he said no NWG as in the term, not me specifically. Right. I see. You're right. You meant the slogan. Okay. I think Jerry says, getting no white guilt. I will be getting no white guilt stickers printed up soon. Was debating about what to get put on them, but you have just made my mind up. Well, thank you so much, Jerry. Damn, thank you so much. That is splendid. And I salute you for that. Magnificent, magnificently done. That is going to make a big difference. If white people right now, our brothers and sisters out there, the vagues, are fumbling around for what to say, how to say it, what words will really put their feelings into a absolutely inviolable position. And no white guilt is that position. So it's brilliant. Thank you so much for that. The Ahmed Aubrey death. Oh, that's not the same police officers I was. Wait, what is that guy's name? I thought, yeah, the other one, the police officer I was thinking of was the Brooks. So you're talking about not the police officers, actually, if this is right. You're talking about the retired police officer and his son that were indicted. My God. They were just indicted? So you have a father and son who, and the father is a retired police officer and recently retired, who saw somebody in a house. I can't even say I can't. You know the anti-whites will shut this down. We'll see what happens with this indictment. But that means they're going to trial. That means they're going to have to spend an ungodly amount of money that they don't have, I assure you. He was a police officer. They're going to have to spend an ungodly amount of money in order to defend themselves for something that was utterly defensible. Absolutely, utterly defensible. God, that's despicable. Nordic Nightmare says, must have misunderstood what you meant. Forgive me, it's late and I'm very tired. No worries, brother. No worries, I understand. I appreciate you writing that. Good on you for having the maturity. Monty says, he did in response to the 3 killed in the park in reading by an asylum seeker. No white guilt. He did in response. So he's saying, this individual who hired the airplane is saying that he hired the airplane because of, did he say anything about coming up with the slogan "White Lives Matter" Thank you for that information, by the way. Regrettably, I want you to think about this for a minute. This guy is saying, if this is the case, maybe I misunderstand, but if you're saying that the guy is saying that he hired the airplane to fly a banner over a soccer field, and was it correct that they flew over while everybody was kneeling, or was that just created and it didn't actually happen that way, created on a computer somewhere? But anti-whites are not going to, how can I say this in the most concise way? Maybe I'll just say it this way. Anti-white, you're not going to be able to get away with saying, I know your phrase is Black Lives Matter, but I'm going to inverse that and say White Lives Matter, and I don't mean any connection to the Black Lives Matter phrase. It's just because of this incident over here. You're not going to be able to get away with that. I mean, if that's really why he's saying he did it, then he definitely should have talked to me before making this decision, because there's no way in hell anyone is going to believe that is the reason he had this towed behind the plane. And remember, there's a word, verisimilitude. And if you don't know what it means the appearance of truth. It doesn't matter if that's the real reason he did it. What matters is that to everyone out there, it doesn't have the ring of truth. It appears on its face, and it will, regrettably, be easily framed by the anti-whites in the regime, framed for all of our brothers and sisters out there to be something very different than the individuals, the white people who lost their lives by some anti-white, non-white monster. It sounds like took their lives. Jerry says, sees both sides of this mini debate. I think if he would have flown a no white guilt banner over the UK, the UK media would have made it even worse for him, he says. Well, let somebody try. Let somebody try, and we'll see what happens. But right now, if you were comparing, Jerry, if you were comparing the name the inverse of the name Black Lives Matter a month before, we had this beatified Floyd. Then the White Lives Matter banner may not have been of interest enough to anti-whites to bother to get him fired or to find out who actually hired the airplane and etc. They may not have cared. But the moment that this thing happened, as I was articulating early in the stream, the moment that beatified Floyd was killed, died in police custody, then everything became an option in retaliation. So this was the worst time to fly a banner that would say something like that. Again, like I said, when this happened and BLM became the movement at the front of this, I knew that you could not say anything negative about them. And apparently no one else did, because people getting strikes, losing channel, can't stream, streams shut down midway through, people getting kicked off Twitter by the thousands for it, people being reprimanded on Facebook by the thousands for it. And then this guy the guy and his girlfriend loses their jobs because of it. This is definitely not the time to use that slogan and think you're going to escape punishment if by the anti-whites if your name is going to be able to be conflated with it. So like I said, if you want to say White Lives Matter, put that up on a banner or a leaflet somewhere. Don't get caught. Do it in a legal area. But you say the opposite or inverse of Black Lives Matter, and you are going to be, as we say up here in the United States, up shit creek without a paddle. Nathan says, I think this is showing the obvious weakness whites have for being seduced by ideas. We need to focus on winning, period. Amen. I agree with that. Very insightful comment, brother. All right. I think we might have covered everything over here. Nathan said, now Nathan has a different opinion. If they had used no white guilt on the banner, the anti-whites would have started melting in the western sunrise. It would have done a lot more good because it would have started the conversation, or the anti-whites, they would have had to ignore the conversation. This is another element of it, that these things are so multifaceted. It's another element of it. If he had used no white guilt on the banner, then the anti-whites would have had to try to not talk about it. In fact, we had a leaf, and why? Why would they not want to talk about it? Because they don't want to have to be the bad guy in somebody else's story. They don't want to have to describe why you should feel white guilt. So we had somebody distribute no white guilt leaflets, and it went up on the news. And what did the news channel have to try to do? The news channel had to show leaflets from some other leafleting, from some other time, this old stock footage that they had, to just run up beside it and to show that then as, oh, these were the leaflets. So that shows you that you have found the chink in their armor. And by that, I mean the crack or the crevice. Red Pill, Bulgaria says, with that statement, I agree 100%. No white guilt is an excellent meme. I appreciate that. Thank you. And we hope you will definitely come away from any idea or unintended intent about using lexicon and dialectics that are successful. So good on you, and thank you for remaining with us. Monty says he has no white guilt. Nordic Nightmare says would have got this same no white guilt would have got the same reaction. Not being funny, but Americans don't understand the climate in England. Human beings are white human beings. Western kind is the same all over the world, and they're going to respond the exact same way to positioning. And in fact, human beings in general, we can say this, to the positioning of argumentation, to the positioning of the premises that are used, accepted, rejected in argumentation, and where the onus is placed in argumentation. These things are universal in human being interaction. You can go all the way down to children, and you can observe. In fact, I remember as a child observing, I've always been an observer of people, and I remember as a child observing the disagreements with children. They were amazingly simplistic, obviously, compared to the arguments that adults make, and nonetheless, you have premises that are accepted or rejected, onus, where the onus is put on and whom it is put on, and if you refuse to have the conversation any other way, you will win that conversation. So if you want to say that in the UK, it is going to be superior to speak with words, only with the words that anti-whites say we're allowed to use, then prove it. I'm not saying, by the way, Nordic Nightmare, that is what you're claiming. I'm saying, generally speaking, if there's anybody out there who says that in the UK or in Germany or wherever that it's going to be better for us to only speak in the words that anti-whites let us use, well, my response to that is prove it. Because you all have been doing it, white people in the States, in Canada, in Europe, in Australia, you've been doing this forever, and have you been winning? It's been one loss after another, and that is what I seek to put an end to. And I can fail. I can be wrong. Somebody else could be right. Somebody else could find the way. And all I care about is that somebody finds the way. And so I am one of the people who will stand in the front lines, shoulder to shoulder with heroes like we have here, you know, Iron Will and Nathan and Yiz and Althea and all of these others. I will get shoulder to shoulder with all of you heroes and do everything we can in the way that we think is going to be most likely the path and method to success. And we have evidence for that being the prescriptions that we give for being successful. And so we tout them and we admonish folks to use them, and we encourage the using of that lexicon and dialectics. And to circle back and, you know, to bring sort of it all together, for those who want to, are champions out there, content producers or leaders, organizational or thought-wise or both, if those people think that there is another route to that objective, then my opinion is, and the opinion of those in service to going free, is more power to you. We hope you are able to succeed. We don't think that method will work, but we hope it will, since you're putting so much effort into it. And then the opinion for those who are out, and then so saying here, in keeping with the title, we're going to continue not browbeating individuals who say, my objective is recapturing our destiny, but by this method. So if they say not going to buy into using these dialectics and lexicon, then we say, so be it. I wish you the best of luck. For those who say just can't win, just can't remember, rather, these anti-whiteism, that's too hard to remember. And the anti-whites didn't validate it for me, so therefore it's not legitimate. Or I can't remember anti-white and anti-whiteism, but I can remember Summer of Love, and I can flip any direction the anti-whites want me to flip. If they want me to call the people out in Seattle Chaz one day, I'll do it, and then the next day they want me to call them Chop. Well, that fast I can do it. You know, and they want to say whatever it is, but they can't learn and they can't memorize these very simple things. Then they just don't browbeat those folks either. You just say, have a nice day. You can stay on that path. We don't think it's going to lead anywhere good. Not everybody can be saved, ladies and gentlemen. Not everybody is going to make it to the promised land, but we are going to give it our damnedest effort to get there, and we're going to continue doing what's working. We have Nathan over here on Cash App. Thank you so much, dear friend. $10 financial gift. Going free to save our white asses. I love it. Going free to save our white asses. Brilliant. 41 BMC is here, and for Null has shown up. We're going to be checking out in just a moment. Celtic God says, can you discuss the Pavlovian responses? So many people are susceptible to, and that being part of why it is important to repeatedly have these discussions. That's a great question, and maybe I should speak more to it in the next Going Free. We're really running out of time here. It's a really fabulous question, because the Pavlovian responses are the meme pathogen triggers that are inside of our people, so that the moment you trigger one of these MPs, then immediately their subconscious mind brings forward a host. They don't have to do any thinking. Do you have to do any thinking when you drive home? Do you have to do any thinking when you ride a bicycle? They don't have to do any thinking. It just happens instantly, and then sets a context in which all of the cerebral context thoughts take place. It sets then these boundaries. And what often do you hear these boundaries called? You hear them called referred to as a window of discussion, right? Where certain things are allowed, certain things are not allowed. And you hear content producers talk all the time about, can we shift the window this way or shift the window that way? You can't, because the window is inside of people's minds. It's set by the anti-whites with their mean pathogens. So when you elicit, when you trigger MPs in someone's mind by using, and this is our belief, not everybody thinks it's going to work, but we watch it work here. If you trigger MPs by using language, using anti-white slurs, anti-white concepts, then you have immediately triggered the MPs in their mind for what it means, what racist means. And it's just like tree. You might be able to say to someone between you and another person, well, for us right now, tree is actually going to mean something different. It's going to mean rock. And they can say, okay, for right now, in our little cloistered group here of 2 or 3 or whatever it is, tree means rock. But they're still going to see a tree. It's still going to mean a tree. Racist is still going to mean you are evil as a white person. There's no getting away from that. You've learned that your whole life. So every time somebody says that concept, you are going to see in your mind's eye what a dirty, ugly, racist person. You're going to see somebody who harms innocent non-white people. You're going to feel the emotions of what you have learned to feel every time you see the character that is considered the racist, which is that person is immoral, that person is ignorant, that person is wrong, that person is backward. And you're also going to be framed in that window of what kind of person opposes that. A moral person, a good person, a handsome person, a pretty person, a person who gets the sexual partners in life that they want, who is likable by everyone and gets adulation from others. Those are the kind of people who oppose them. What do you think that does to the thought chain in your mind when you try to counter these sorts of things? You are on this thought chain that this trigger created in you thousands of times over has just flipped. You're now inside the window of the permissible thought spectrum, where there are the thoughts, the actual thoughts composed of words, and then emotions bolstering it. And you are in the group that is the evil ones. You are in the group that has a history of evil, innate evil, etc. You're immoral, ugly, or if you have intelligence, it's used to harm the innocent. And those who oppose you are the good guys. What do you think that does for your thought chain? Are you able to think your way out of that? Hell no. In some ways, it is infinitely complicated, and in other ways, it's infinitely simple. The application of it is infinitely simple. The understanding of it is infinitely complicated. This is why we talk about thought chains. This is why we teach MCs and dialectics, so that when you get into our story, you are on a thought chain where thoughts will occur to you to serve that particular conversation, where you will be winning that conversation, where you will be bringing the person over to going free, or you will be defeating an anti-white in the point that they're making, and they, having to move over into your thought chain, will be the ne'er-do-well, will be the antagonist, won't be able to win under any circumstance. I started the show off today talking about mentioning the threads, A Tale of Two Threads, where I responded to the anti-white in our story, and he didn't write back. Somebody else responded in the anti-white narrative, and they went back and forth for a more than a dozen comments where the anti-white was just winning every time he came back, because he's in the anti-white narrative, until this person finally said, well, you're just anti-white. And then he had to get on the defensive. Then our guy was winning that conversation. Where do you want to be in that? Seika says, why wasn't there a PWR today? There was. It was on D Live, and you can find it on BitChute tomorrow. Eternalism Jason sometimes has incomplete info, but he thinks he has all the relevant pieces to consider. Right. Right. You're never going to have every piece of data for any particular thing. And if you waited to move forward, especially when you're moving within contexts that are regular contexts, both within the mind of the human animal and within the environment, socio-political environment in which the animal operates. So you can anticipate things even if you haven't yet found that something absolutely is the case, and make a decision based on that. For example, we know that, and this is a really crude example, but we know that water always runs downhill. So we know that even though we haven't seen the glacier melt over the ridge of the mountain, we know, we can make a guess that we're going to have a body of running water to have to cross, because we know that the glacier or the snow cap melting, that the water will be running downhill. Correct. So thank you though for pointing that out. All right, ready to go. I guess, well, I haven't seen the statue, and rest assured, if any of Lenin in Germany, rest assured that if anybody goes and damages it, they will go to jail forever. Sigma says, thanks for streaming today, brother, even though it's really late here in ye old Europe. How are you doing tonight? I'm fabulous. I'm doing great. Okay, let's take a quick look over here, and then we'll see about me getting back to work. Okay, this is calls to remove a statue of Iceland's founder. This is in Reykjavik. Is the first prominent settler of Iceland. That's his name, first name, and founder. According to the journalist, the founder, the quote unquote murderer, he was a murderer and oppressed the freedom of heroes. And so, okay, here comes the myths of pretexts: moralized, intellectualized, sentimentalized. So what do you say? You simply say, we don't care what your reasons are. If you have an anti-white conclusion, we reject it. Try that out, ladies and gentlemen. See how it works for you. It's been a grand time being able to get together with you all, going free. I thank you all for all of your hard work and service to White Wellbeing. And remember that if a content producer says that he or she is going another way, no need to browbeat them. Just let them go the direction they want to go, and we wish them the best. We hope that they have success. And if somebody else out there, friends, family, or strangers, says well, they just can't speak with speech that isn't condoned by the anti-whites, well, you just tell them to have a nice day and get on to somebody who can learn and work for White Wellbeing. Thank you all for everything you're doing